record. And let's see. So just a little before we get really into it. It's just going to really be a conversation.
Yeah.
And thank you for having your camera at the proper angle. Not like, hey, down there.
Well, that's what I spend half my day doing. The last couple of days have been really Zoom heavy. So, and I typically don't wear these clothes on my Zoom calls, but I was not prepared. I went back to the apartment and I do not have my warm clothes. So it got cold here. I don't know if it's cold.
Is it?
Yeah.
It's supposed to be in the 20s tonight, but it's March and that's what we expect.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I'm just scanning the questions really quick.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. I was actually just having coffee with Melanie Weller. So,
we talked and she's going to be a guest too. I'm so excited because everybody has so many different stories.
Yeah. Yeah. She and I kind of connected on this topic, actually, she's farther ahead in her self-awareness journey, but, we still have a lot to connect about. We were talking about, being fat girls growing up and not having any friends. So.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. All right.
Yeah. We talk about pretty deep stuff. It's got I don't know.
No, I didn't have that experience. So
it's really interesting.
Yeah.
But, okay.
Yeah. So the only other thing I'll say is that the challenge with recording at this hour is my black kitty is all wild. And so she may be showing up she just did get on the back of my chair and then she ran off the other side. So don't be distracted by the tail.
Great. And by the way, I love the concept. I think it's great. I like the idea. Because that's, midlife, you've passed the fine thing, yeah. So we'll talk about that obviously, but I just think this concept's great.
Thank you. Okay. Now what did I just do with my, well, now I'm looking at how do I had the controls back to show. I had it as split. Okay, there we go. Gallery view and speaker view. All right. I don't know how it's recording. That's the thing. If it's in speaker view.
Yeah. I gotcha.
If it's on, yeah. I think it's recording speaker view. That's fine. So, all right. I will do an introduction separately.
Right.
Before we get into it. So,
okay.
Yeah. So thank you for joining me today, Pam. I'm so excited to talk with you about your journey and your experience.
I'm excited to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah. So give me a brief overview of your early life. Like what was expected of you when you were growing up and what beliefs were instilled in you or what beliefs did you pick up?
I think that growing up, it was a traditional family. We lived in Indiana and then we moved to Florida when I was about 16. And the values were suck it up and get it done, right?
Okay.
Work done. It's not, it wasn't an emotional like we were not embracing our emotions. Basically, we weren't a family that sat and discussed things, middle class, blue collar family, loving family for sure. But it wasn't a family where, where someone, put their arms around you and said, that's okay. Don't worry if you can't get this done right. We'll try it again. It was more like, you can't get this done right. Go do something else, So it's kind of an emotionally quiet family, I guess. Yeah.
Okay. So you
We
didn't
were
express a lot of
Midwestern.
emotions.
We didn't express a lot of emotions, right? We just
Okay.
learned that it wasn't, that we did not express emotions. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And then how did you live the first 20, 25 years of your adult life? Like tell me a little bit of the story there.
Yeah. So I think that that's, um, I just kind of, I was a woman of action, like you just did stuff. You just, did what you could in school. You did stuff around the house, you did not, I know younger, we certainly had our leisure time, but certainly as we got to be teenagers, we did not, hanging out and just doing nothing wasn't really acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
We did have a period where my dad was in Florida, my mom was in Indiana, and that was a little more lax. We didn't have we in some respects, but in other respects, she, because she was a single mom at that time, we did have more responsibility in some aspects around the house. But yeah, it wasn't, I was I wouldn't say I was shy, but I certainly didn't understand my own emotions and didn't understand myself and didn't realize, how important, sharing your feelings were with other people to make a connection. And so that's kind of what happened for my first more than 25 years, first 40, almost 50 years of
Okay.
not knowing how important, sharing and being vulnerable and reaching out and letting other people help you was. That's kind of like the bottom line. It's a Midwestern thing again, right? It's a value thing, or a New England thing. Probably you're self-sufficient. You don't need help. You do everything yourself. Yeah.
Okay.
So that was instilled in me pretty early.
Yeah. Okay. I just want to mention that if for the viewers who are watching the video of this, there is a cat jumping on the back of my chair because she's a little wild as we're recording this. She wants to be on video. Just mentioning, in case people see a tail behind me, it's not actually mine. And so when you were raising your own children, is that how you raised them?
Yes, unfortunately. They, very much, I didn't understand that, you need to tell your kids it's okay not to be able to do things. It was more like I didn't understand that, like, sometimes you just can't do things. You just can't. It's not a failure of anything. It's just who that person is at that time and what circumstances are in front of them. You know, that's definitely how my children until recently, and still, they still have that so it's a lot of internal criticism that's created in your own voice, the voice of your parents that kind of gets handed down to you of, you got to do things better. Like I've never felt like whatever I've done is good enough. So, and that, not intentionally, but I know in some respects I have passed that down to my daughters. Unfortunately, my husband's not like that. And so, that's a little bit, they got a little bit of a reprieve from him.
A little bit of balance there.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
I wonder how common that is, that that it's not good enough, that we could do better. Because I remember my mom telling a story. I don't remember the actual incident, but I remember her telling the story of me coming home in first grade, so 6 years old, in tears because I got a 97 on a spelling test and not 100. And the other part of that story is she was horrified that was a value that had already been instilled in me at 6 years old. She's like, I don't know where this came from. But so it's kind of like, I wonder, is that something that we just are innately born with? Some people are, and some people have it passed down from family. I don't know.
I think it's a combination. Yeah, no, I don't think it's passed down. I mean, I guess you could argue that it is, but I think it's more of a societal, subtle cues,
Mm.
religious background. I mean, this was a story I told somebody recently, was that, um, that, uh, when I was probably 7, um, I went into the kitchen and I was crying, and my mom's like, "What's wrong?" And I'm like, "I can't do it perfectly. I'm not perfect." And she goes, "Honey, only Jesus is perfect, you know?" And or no, no, and she knows, she's like, "Not even Jesus was perfect." And I know,
Okay.
I recall that internal dialogue saying, "No, I'm going to be perfect," you know? And like where
Yeah.
that came from, I know that that came from, my upbringing for sure. I mean, I know
Uh-huh.
now that, but I lived with that, and I still live with that a little bit. I think that
Yeah.
in the group that you and I are in, the Hot Women group, the questionnaire that was sent out, one of the question was, what is your um, proudest moment or biggest
Yeah. Biggest
accomplishment?
success. Yeah. Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And like I really had a hard time because I'm like, I don't feel like any of it's good enough. I don't feel like anything's, something that I can be proud of. It was the proudest moment, right? And a lot of moms would be like, "Oh, and my daughter did so and so or whatever." And I'm like, "Well, that's not my accomplishment. That's their
Right.
accomplishment." Right.
Right. Right.
Uh,
Right.
so, um, you know, I just finally, I'm like, I just put something down. I think I can't remember. Like when our board reached like 300 in a month or something, and but like, yeah, that dialogue of I can't. I worked for a paper that won a Pulitzer the year that I worked for them. Have done a lot of things, but it's like I feel like I can always do better. Like I'm always
Yeah.
struggling with I can always do better. That nothing's good
Yeah.
enough.
So I'm curious, what's your birth order?
I'm the youngest. My brother is
Okay.
3 years older. Yeah.
Okay. That's interesting only because it seems like a lot of times that's an oldest child thing.
Yes. Yeah.
That's my case. I'm the oldest. So I just
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
wondering if that
Yeah.
had any effect, but I guess not. So,
I think it depends.
um, yeah, yeah. So I know that you are going through a big life transition right now.
Mhm.
Before we get to that, how long were you in fine? Everything's fine here.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, that's how I lived my adult life, basically. From I got married at 24, and that entire time, I would say that I lived in fine. Like it's
Mm.
fine. That's fine. It's fine because you don't either when you're in your 20s and you're trying to establish your career, or when you're raising your children, or going back to your career, you don't have I don't think women are allowed to stop and think, "Whoa, wait a minute, this is not for me, this is not working out, I am not fine," because it's viewed as a weakness, right? If you're fine, if you're emotional, then, oh well, it's a typical woman thing.
Mm.
So um yeah, so that the whole time has been fine until over the last 3 years, probably 2 years, that
Yeah.
I've broken out of fine. So, and I didn't realize there was another way of being, Lori. I didn't.
Okay. All right. So, which brings up the question I was going to ask you is, did you talk to your friends about everything being fine, but not really feeling fine?
Nope.
No.
No, no,
Wow.
that was not,
Okay.
that was because I don't think I recognized it. I think
Mm.
that's the thing, is you don't recognize it when you're in that. I didn't, I'm learning that I'm a person who doesn't, and I think everybody's different, right? But I think that I am a person that doesn't recognize my own feelings. Like I had a hard time. I'd struggled with like other people can read me, but I don't read myself. So
Right.
people
Which would,
see, go ahead.
I was going to say, which would go back to your childhood where you were basically not allowed to have feelings.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And so, right. So I just didn't acknowledge them. I didn't know that I had feelings that were, I don't know, valid, but like I just stuffed everything down.
Mm. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. And then what happened?
Well, and then my husband and I started just kind of exploring our marriage, and we broke out of the box of what we were doing, for better or worse. And now we're in the process of separating. We've been separated since October. But it's been a 18-month journey or so. But actually conversely, what happened was that was important, but as important was the fact that I met up in January of 2020, a year ago. I had some travel planned. And so I went to Los Angeles and I went to Washington, D.C. in the same trip. And when I was in Los Angeles, I talked to two women that I'd known for a long time, and I was vulnerable with them. And I told them about some of the struggles and some of the things that I was going through. And it was like a magic box had opened up to me, because being vulnerable with these women, they reciprocated, and they were vulnerable and open with me. And same thing happened. So I met two women separately, and no, it was actually three women. And then I went to Washington, D.C., and same thing happened. And so that's when I came back and I started the Hot Women of an Uncertain Age board, because I'm like, we're not talking, we're not talking about anything. And I think that I don't think that women talk that much. I mean, I think we talk about stuff that's not important. I think we talk about kids. Kids are important, but that's not really who we are. We might talk about careers. A lot of women talk about clothes and TV shows and things like that. That's fine. That's entertainment, but that's not really a connection. That's not a point of connection. And that's kind of where I failed, because I never like to talk about, TV shows or fashion or whatever. So that's not really who I am. I'm not a small talk person, but that's
not a failure.
No, but that's not who I am. And okay. So, but that accessing this deep well of women who, had all these emotions and wanted to talk, right? And then also conversely, the year before that, I'd been to India, and that opened up my eyes to how everything is, wow. And the year before that, we went to Vietnam. So international travel, where we showed up in Vietnam and people were like driving on the wrong side of the street, and people were just walking across the traffic, and, it like threw everything that I knew up into question. It's like, oh my God, the way that we live our lives, the rules that we follow are not set in stone. They're not, they're just a construct. And why do we have to follow those rules? So yeah, so the trips to Vietnam, the trip to India, kind of our marital difficulties, and then, being vulnerable with other women, and then being open up to us, and then starting the conversation on Facebook with the group of women has literally changed my life. And I would say, of all of those, I think having more women friends and talking and connecting with the women has been the biggest of those.
Cool. So I want to go back to the women that you just met them in LA, and then
no, they're
opened up.
No, they're old friends. They were old friends.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. I wasn't clear on that.
No,
okay.
there were friends that some, to varying levels, we had been friends for a long time, but we didn't have the friendship where I could call up somebody and say, I'm struggling, help me. Right.
Yeah. Okay.
And now I could with those women. Right. And they could to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I was asking for clarification because sometimes it feels like it's easier to open up to people that we don't really know very well.
Right.
And so I didn't know if that was the case there.
No, these are people. Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha. And so we don't know how this story goes because you're still going through it. And that's a cool thing. Some of my guests have stories where, I mean, nobody knows how the story ends because we're all still alive, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes they've gotten through that particular period of transition so they can talk to how it's turned out. You and I, we're in our journey, are still in the midst of it. So like, I don't know, I'll let you know.
Really. Yeah, I think it's definitely positive though. It's
yeah. So you feel like you're making the right decision?
Absolutely. Yeah. Like the separation from my husband, and then, the self-awareness, and I can't remember who I was talking to the other day, but I was telling them that, sometimes I'm really happy, and I have a much wider depth and breadth of emotions than I used to. So like, I was fairly flat, like at least I felt flat internally. Although again, I think that manifested as like it was anger. Other people saw that as anger. But now I have like this morning I was really happy, and I'm just so excited, and it's such a great day, and tomorrow may not be that great, and it's okay. Have it's more of a roller coaster. I don't know if that's perimenopause or if it's just whatever it is. But I like it. I like being able to have different emotions and sit with them and process them.
Yeah. Well, that's really being human.
Mm-hmm.
It's about feeling the emotions, and we've labeled emotions as negative and positive, but they're really just all emotions. Like some of them may feel better than others, but it's all part of the human experience. And I don't recommend stuffing any of them down.
Right.
Even when they don't feel, let's say they don't feel good, to experience them and move through them is so important.
Right. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Sounds like you're learning how to do that, which is fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's really, I went to a therapist kind of at the beginning of all this. Actually, before I went to India, I started seeing a therapist, and her first question was like, how are you feeling? And I'm like, I really don't know, and, that was when I started unpacking my feelings and realizing that, I had them. Right. I'm like,
wow.
Oh, and it was, it's a scary thing to sit with sadness or anger or grief.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've still got a lot to work through. My mother died in 2005. Well, Katrina hit in August. My mother died in July of 2005. A month later, Katrina hit.
Oh, geez.
And my daughter had cancer when she was 4 in 2008.
Wow.
So yeah, so in the midst of that, we moved to Washington, D.C., and we moved back. And,
okay.
During all of that, I'm just like, okay, I'm fine. I've got my job. I've got my kids. We're packing, we're unpacking, we're moving, we're
just doing the thing.
We're just doing it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
wow.
Never stop to be like, oh, I'm kind of sad about this. Right.
Right. Allow yourself to, again, feel the emotions and process the situation.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Just with the narrative of, I'm fine. I can, it's interesting because I think that at least the way I was raised, it's kind of thought of as a strength, not to show your emotion. And maybe it's a masculine trait, but like, I was also like, don't be like a girl, kind of don't feel your emotions because that's so girly. And I never wanted to be girly.
Okay. So being a girl was like a bad thing. Wow.
Right. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. That's a lot to unpack.
I mean, I like, my parents never said that, but it was just kind of like, it wasn't like, it was just that girls are weaker. Right.
Okay.
That's kind of what girls are weaker. I don't want to be weak.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Yeah. That's kind of where that comes from.
Interesting. Well, I have one more question for you, and it's somewhat related. It may seem unrelated to this conversation that we've been having, but in baseball, there's this thing known as your walk-up song. And I'm not a big baseball fan, but I like this concept. It's the song that you as the player gets you pumped up, and it inspires the crowd, and it gives them some insights into your personality.
Mm-hmm.
So what is your walk-up song?
So this will be surprise based on what I just said, but it would probably be Lizzo's Like a Girl.
Okay.
Because it's about being a girl and also being strong.
Yeah.
And I think us as women need to embrace our femininity and strengths that are, now that I am aware of them, superior to masculine strength. So
very cool. And so then do you listen to that song? So this is the purpose of my asking the song is, do you listen to it when you need to get pumped up and feel like infused with good energy?
Yeah, I listen to a lot of Lizzo when I need that. Yeah.
Okay. Very cool. And we're going to put a link in the show notes to that song.
Okay.
So so everybody can listen to it and get pumped up. And then at some point we'll make a playlist of all the songs that all of the guests have mentioned.
Awesome. That's cool.
Yeah. Well, Pam, thank you so much. Is there a last lesson or message that you want to share with the audience?
Just, I think that everybody should, it's kind of passe to say this or cliche, but be authentic, be who they are, and don't be afraid to do the things that you want to do. Don't let society's expectations stop you from doing the things that you feel compelled to do, except for criminal activity, of course.
Criminal activity excluded.
Excluded, yes, exactly.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining me today on Fine is a 4-letter word.
It's good to be here. Thanks, Lori.
All right. So
now you get to lead meditation.